Good afternoon, my brothers and sisters. How we doing today? I can't hear you. How we doing today? Okay, it's such an honor to be with you for your 41st International Convention. It's such a pivotal time for our movement. A special thanks to President Shelton for the gracious invitation to join you, and to Secretary Treasurer Woods and the entire Executive Board for all you do for working people. And being from the Pacific Northwest, it also really feels like I'm with family here with the BCTGM. With IVP Clark, Darren Hammond from Local 114, Cameron Taylor, and Jesus Martinez from Local 364, among all the other delegates, all hailing from fighting Oregon locals of this great union. It is an honor to fight alongside these leaders and our affiliates every single day. So I was asked to talk a bit about the necessary role that state federations and central bodies in every corner of our country must play in order to build a stronger, more resilient, more effective labor movement. And I am proud to come from a union-strong state as well. And for those keeping score, Oregon is now the fourth most union-dense state in the country, jumping from 8th the year before, according to BLS stats. I think that deserves a round of applause. And Oregon is a state where our affiliates have incredibly high expectations for what we do, for what our state federation provides to the greater labor movement. The story I'll tell in just a minute is how the Oregon AFL-CIO, our affiliates, and our community partners jumped into action using traditional and not so traditional and creative ways to support the brave members of Local 364, of course, during the Nabisco strike that started just down the street, literally, from our headquarters building in Portland, Oregon. But before I do that, I wanted to say a few words about the historic nature of the moment that we are in and the role that the BCTGM has played and continues to play in harnessing that change. When I first got elected in 2019 as president of the Oregon AFL-CIO, I remember giving a lot of speeches talking about the rise in collective action, the highest work stoppage numbers we were seeing then since the 1980s, the fact that folks were not just fed up at work, but they were doing something about it. They were putting it all on the line, taking the bravest and most powerful action that any worker could take. They were withholding their labor and telling their bosses to shove it, and they weren't going to take being treated as expendable anymore. That was 2019. Little did we know then that in 2020, our world, our unions, our families, and our lives would be changed forever with a once-in-a-century global pandemic. Millions of workers lost their jobs and their livelihoods almost overnight. Our healthcare system and all the workers in it that make it run were stretched exponentially beyond their limits. And then to make matters even worse, corporations started out by calling us essential, even heroic. But ultimately that rang hollow when just a few months in, they went back to business as usual and people, profits before people, of course. But I've got to say that it's hard to think of a time in my career where I have been more proud of our labor movement than ever than these last 2.5 years, just like we always do. Organized labor ran towards the danger, towards the crisis, and did everything in our collective power to protect workers on the job, support workers who were laid off, hold employers accountable to their rhetoric, and fight like hell for policy change to ensure that our members and all workers were safe, seen, and protected. Am I right? And now look around at what's been happening in the economy and the labor movement and tell me with a straight face that you're not at least somewhat in awe of the bravery of working people everywhere who didn't let a pandemic stop us from fighting. That you're not at least somewhat fired up about the groundswell of public support that we see for unions, or the historic organizing happening at the largest companies and brands in America, or the continual rise in collective action, whether that's on the picket line, at the bargaining table, or the dramatic spikes we're seeing with NLRB union elections. Don't tell me that you're not at least a little fired up. Are you fired up? Okay. I might add that one of the most beautiful parts of this moment is that many of these campaigns are also being led by young people, by women, by people of color, by workers from the most pro-union generation among us. This is a big deal, and we must continue to embrace their energy, their leadership, and their instincts. But now, look around at your sisters, brothers, and your siblings of your own union, coming from every corner of this country and continent and from various sectors of the economy. And know deep down that it's the BCTGM that has helped lead this charge, help show our movement and the entire working class how to fight, help inspire the energy that we are still seeing today for unions and collective action by waging some of the most high-profile strikes and bargaining campaigns during a global pandemic. That's you. That's the power of your union. That's the beauty of what's possible when we never back down from the biggest, most powerful global companies and say, not now, not ever. We are union and we are strong, and there's nothing that can stop us if we are united. Am I right? I'm a little fired up if you can't tell. Now, one of the things I'm most passionate about is the critical role that state federations play in each of our states and the creative ways that our state federation in Oregon works constantly to add value to affiliates and build power for working people. And so when I got a call from Cameron Taylor at Portland Local 364 about where things were headed in Nabisco, my response was the same as it always is when an Oregon affiliate is in a fight. What do you need? How can we help? The Oregon labor movement has your back and will for as long as it takes. So after the brave members, you can clap for that if you'd like. Yeah. I heard a couple people wanted to, so I didn't want to stifle that. So after the brave members of Local 364 walked out, and for the next 5 weeks, the Oregon AFL-CIO, our affiliate unions, and our community partners embraced this struggle as our top priority. Working in partnership with your local officers, local and national officers, the Oregon AFL-CIO jumped into action doing what we do best, using every single tool that we have to bring the most support to the workers and the most leverage and pressure on Mondelez. So in Oregon, here's what I mean when I say use every tool. First, we used our collective power, political power and relationships to help the members by ensuring, as you heard, by ensuring that our pro-worker congressional delegation, including two key voices on global trade, Senator Wyden and Congressman Blumenauer, made sure that they sent that letter to Mondelez, the Mondelez CEO, in support of the striking workers. This gave an important boost to the campaign, and as you already heard, by wrangling local, state, and federal elected officials to show up on the picket line, including nearly every statewide elected official and the Speaker of the House, who is now running to be Oregon's next governor, to show support for the workers. This helped give a morale boost on the picket line, as well as generating more and more media attention. That is an applause line, folks. Two, we used our communications and our mobilization channels to help drive turnout from other Oregon unions to the picket line. By developing an affiliate union turnout strategy that could sustain an indefinite strike, the Oregon AFL-CIO was able to be a resource for the labor movement in terms of directing other unions to the most helpful times on the picket line. Three, we used organizers on the state fed team, on my staff, to find creative ways to screw with Mondelez, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. By procuring our very own Batlight. Anybody know what a Batlight is? A super powerful projection stage light, we were able to project all kinds of images on the side of that damn plant. Just after sunset, on Labor Day, I might add. This became a viral moment in the campaign, and my personal favorite was what you've already heard. Brother Danny DeVito, his mug, and the no contracts, no snacks slogan. But this continues to pay off because now that the state fed has our own Batlight, we've been able to deploy the same types of strategies on various other campaigns, including most recently projecting on the dome of our state capitol a farm worker overtime slogan at the night that a hearing was happening just before that bill was passed. So this will continue to be a critical part of the way that we build pressure. You can clap at that if you want. Number four. I'm so proud, of course, as an Oregonian. We connected, of course, with my good friend, your good friend, Liz Schuler, who you heard from yesterday, fellow Oregonian, again, if you didn't know that, and went to work organizing a rally on the picket line with Portland's iconic National Women's Soccer League team, the Portland Thorns. Anybody hear about this? The Players Association if you recall, the Players Association for the Women's National Soccer League was just days away from becoming the newest affiliate union of the AFL-CIO. They were in the middle of tough contract negotiations, preparing for the possibility of a strike themselves, and they wanted to show solidarity with your fight. And they stood on the picket line for several hours that morning, and they may or may not have stopped a few deliveries from happening that morning as well. So again, a big shout out to the Portland Thorns and the National Women's Soccer League, the newest affiliate of the AFL-CIO. We use the State Fed's communications channels and our podcast to elevate the worker stories from the picket line throughout the strike. And finally, we use our state legislative team to help the workers by spending time on the picket line here at the State Fed and learning about the most important issues facing workers at the facility, looking for a state policy campaign to lean into and win. So after learning about the erratic scheduling that you're so familiar with, that consistently wreak havoc on the lives of workers, our lobby team at the Oregon AFL-CIO went to work to write and introduce the Fair Overtime Scheduling Bill for bakery workers in the 2022 Oregon legislative session. That bill made it an adverse employment action to discipline a worker for refusing overtime if they are given less than 5 days advance notice. We helped support members from the plant that testified, some of them are here today, about their experiences at work, which made an incredibly powerful case to lawmakers in our state. The State Federation and our affiliates added this bill to our agenda, even after the strike, of course, was over, as a way to improve working conditions for all bakery workers in Oregon. The Oregon labor movement did that, and that bill became law in the state of Oregon earlier this year. And a final point I know you'll love about cross-union solidarity that you may or may not know about. Early on in the strike, the community allies and the broader labor movement started to build bridges with the railroad unions to find ways to halt the rail deliveries into the plant. And within just a few days, they were able to stop multiple deliveries, causing the conductors to literally back up the damn train out of solidarity, and that was just before Railroad Workers United tweeted, "No contract, no snacks, flour and sugar stays on the tracks." If that isn't a show of cross-union solidarity and economic power, I don't know what is. I thought you might like that. So in Oregon, this is what we do, and I am honored to have the opportunity to continue to work with affiliates and our Oregon locals of the BCTGM when they need it most, when they're in a big fight and when they need to build broad support for their cause, because this moment is ours for the taking. This moment is being led by working people looking for change. This moment has been made possible by the members of the BCTGM. This moment was ready-made for the American labor movement, which I might remind you is still the most powerful force for change in our economy. We are charting our future, and this is our fight, I hear. And in this moment, it's up to each and every one of us to harness it, to organize like never before, to never back down from a fight for justice, and to be the labor movement with open arms and open doors for any worker dreaming of a better life. Because when we fight, what do? When we fight, I can't hear you. When we fight, thank you all. Have a great rest of your convention.